Hello and welcome to another exciting edition of A Splash of Paint, brought to you in association with the SAA. Today's programme is a colourful pick and mix of practical information and demonstrations to inspire your artistic passion and encourage you to try something new. So switch on your creativity and settle back for 60 minutes of the latest tips, tricks and techniques from some of the most popular leading artists. Let's get started and take a look at what's on today's palette. Versatile artist Terry Chipp will be here to reveal his top tips, tricks and techniques to show you how to rescue a dented canvas. We'll be throwing the spotlight on the world of acrylics as part of our regular introducing feature as we take a closer look at the work of one of the many popular SAA professional artists, Mike Skidmore. International pastel artist Vic Bearcroft provides this week's art bite project demonstrating how easy it is to create your favourite animal in a few simple shapes. And Warren Saylor drops by to tell us a few of his favourite things. But before all that, I want to kick things off with part one of today's painting project and show you a few simple step-by-step techniques to try and help you create your own wonderful watercolour landscapes. Let's get started. I've got it sketched in, folks, on the watercolour paper there, nice sheet of cotton paper, and we're going to paint a wonderful autumnal woodland with a nice reflection, lots of nice warm colours for this one. I'll start off by mixing a few colours though. So the first thing is to get a nice clean brush. I'm using the size 20 brush there. And I'm going to mix up a lot of the autumn colour for the background. I want a stack of this. This is going to go in pretty quickly and very, very strong with the colour as well. So try and get a nice thick mixture of aureolin and burnt sienna. We are mixing for a sponge. There's the sponge, and a sponge will use a lot of colour, so just make sure that you mix plenty of paint for this. This is a mixture of aureolin and a little bit of burnt sienna. Clean brush again. And when you clean your brush, just give it a good swirl and just wipe the excess off on the side. I want a similar colour to this, but this time I'm going to put more burnt sienna with it as well. So it's the same mixture, aureolin and burnt sienna, but much more burnt sienna this time. So there's an obvious difference between the two colours there. That's the autumn colours. I'll clean my brush, and I'm going to make sure it's very clean because I need a sky blue at this point. So I want to use some natural blue for the sky. That's a nice bright clean blue, that one. There we go. And I also want, clean brush again, yellow ochre. It's something, when you're covering the paper like this will be a complete mash, you need to make sure that you get lots and lots of colour mixed and get the preparation ready before you do anything else. So clean brush again, and I'm going to go for a green now because I want green in this. Aureolin and natural blue for the green. So a bit of a golden green, so plenty of yellow for that one. I then want a darker green as well, which will be aureolin and natural grey. So the thing to do is take your time mixing those colours, put plenty of grey. That'll make a nice dark shadowy green. So there's an obvious difference between the two colours there. Clean that brush. Don't worry that the water's gone funny, that's fine. And I'll put that brush to one side and then we'll come to the sponge, the famous sponge. Give it a clean, squeeze everything out of it, make sure it's nice and clean, and then use the sponge for wetting the paper. When you buy a natural sponge, choose it wisely. Choose your weapon wisely because the sponge will make the picture, to be honest, and what you're looking for is you're looking for something what's nice and spiky because that'll give you the tree effect, you see. And make sure the paper's nice and covered. And look after your sponge. A sponge is for life, not just for Christmas. Make sure it's all nicely covered. There we go. And then we'll squeeze the excess out of the sponge there. That's ready to go. But we'll come back to the brush just for a second because I'm going to put some yellow ochre on for the sky. And just in the centre there, this is very pale, this yellow ochre. Just going to work it through and kind of fade it down into the background. So that's the bottom of the sky. I've got some kitchen roll there because you need a little bit of that in your hand as well. Then we'll go for the blue. Clean your brush, go for natural blue. And we'll get this right at the top. Now you can see the blue is not particularly strong. It's quite a pale colour. I'm going to work it across, leave a few white patches and just literally fill it in. As it comes down towards the yellow ochre, just take the excess off the brush and just let it all disappear away. Let it fade in. That's all we need for the sky. It's just to take the white away, that's all it is. Just going to creep a little bit at the bottom of the water as well, not too much. So that's just from the bottom up there. That's the brush finished with for a few minutes, and we'll now go for the sponge, okay? It's ready if it's damp. Make sure you've squeezed everything out of it. we'll go for the nice autumn colour first. As soon as you pick the colour up, it will literally just take all of it, but there's plenty on the sponge, and try and use the nice spiky part of the sponge. That's what you're looking for, okay? We'll go straight in and we're going to start to fill this thing in now, but we're going to do it in a dab. We're going to dab this and we're going to tap it through. Now the paper's wet, so what you're going to get is bleeding paint, which is what you need for this. You've got to have bleeding paint on your pictures when you do wet into wet. Useful phrase, that. Now can you see, because we've got blue on, it's mixing with that obviously. It's going to give us variations in colour tone. And I'm just going to go over the sides there. Already we can see we're getting the nice effect of the woodland picture there. I'm going to use the sponge and pick up some aureolin with it and mix it back in the colour, make it slightly brighter, more yellow. And then we'll continue to dab. So I'm still working with the same colour, I've just tweaked it slightly. As we come down towards the base there, where the water would be, I would expect to see a little bit of reflection of these colours, so I'm going to sweep it in a horizontal fashion. It almost puts like stripes on your picture, which is great for this. We've not got to clean the sponge, we'll go straight in for the next colour, which is the burnt sienna one. It's got more burnt sienna. And then we'll just do the same, gentle taps. And again, it's still wet, the paper. We're working pretty quickly on this because I want the paper to stay wet. And we'll start to fill it all in. And keep looking back a few steps, look back at your picture, think about the shapes of the trees, think about the composition of it. I'm just going to use this colour to put some paint on the actual area where the foreground, where the banking touches the stream. A sponge is quite nice because you've got different parts of it. So you've got the part with the colour on, and you've also got the part that's just got a bit of water. So you can use the piece with the water and you can just lightly blend in as well. It's a good tool for doing that. It's a multi-use thing as a sponge. There you go. So you can see how the colours are starting to blend. Back to the burnt sienna again. Add in a few more little bits. It's starting to dry, which is good. And we can just start it to actually work through. And as it dries, it gets more focused, more detailed. So picking up some burnt sienna with the sponge. And you can see that just on the end of the sponge there. It's all nice and spiky. It's got all the nice individual little bits. You can almost pinch your sponge and gather it up, and it will make it more open. And we can now start to add a little bit more detail to this, especially towards the bottom of the trees. The paper is still damp, which is a good thing for this. And then I want to give it a clean. Get all the autumn colour out of it, squeeze in the water. And then we'll go for the greens. We've got two greens, go for the lighter one first. You would expect to see green in a picture like this, so I'm going to put some in there. Very gentle taps at this point. Don't want too much, but you can almost mix it in the areas where the other colours are. So again, towards the base of the trees is a good place for this. And we'll just gently dab it. And just put a few very gentle taps. Pick the green up. Very gentle taps just every so often. And now the paper's drying off again, it's giving that nice focus to it. If you feel that the colour you've put on is a bit too heavy, use the other side of the sponge, which has just got no paint but it's got a bit of water on, and you can just very lightly bed it into the paper. So if we look back, already we've got a nice looking scene, and you can imagine the trees because the texture that the sponge gives you. You might also notice the paper's got a bit wavy. That's because I'm working very wet with this. It will flatten out. I'm just going to put a little bit in the water, right on the water's edge. So it's like a thin line. Use the other side of the sponge, and I'm just going to work that in again. So we're starting to almost see water just with sponge, no brushes. We've got the darker green. The darker green comes in at this point, and I'm just going to put a few little bits. I don't want too much darkness, but certainly around the base of the trees it would work very well. Get to know your sponge, get to know which side works best. So I'm being very gentle now, and again the paper is still damp because I keep adding colour to it. It's damp, so it's going to let me work for a long time. And again I can use the watered side of the sponge and bed it in. And that's probably enough on the sponge for the minute. So I want to pop that away. And I want to go for the paintbrush. I've got a size 6 brush. I need to mix up a new colour, and this colour is going to be natural grey, which is actually a mixture of red, yellow and blue pigment. It's a primary colour, grey, which means it's a nice shadow colour. We've got a bit of a footpath in the middle there, which I'm going to drop in. I'm going to bring that down with natural grey. I'd like it to disappear into the wood, so get that point as it goes off to the side there. And then just bring it through again. As it comes down towards this foreground area, I want it to work into the picture, get it working with it. So I'll go so far. You can see I'm working almost dry brush at that point. And it's the point where I can scribble the colours into each other, so it's where it blends into this leaf-covered area. And then what we'll do then is we'll come back to the dark green. So I've still got the dark green there. It might need a bit of water just to work in with it. And then just working either side of this path, I can lay in a little bit of an edge, and that will give me the shape to the footpath. I'll do the other side as well. Remember, this is the darker colour. The paper's still damp, which is a good thing for this. Clean my brush, I'll go for the brighter green, which is the mixture of aureolin and natural blue. And then use it on the other side as well. And I can almost fill in the area as it goes back off into the mist, into the haze. But for the first time, you can now see that nice waving path as it goes off into the distance. Where the paint finishes, it would be a good idea to clean your brush and just dab it on tissue. And then just lightly soften away those hard lines. If you've still got the hard lines, work them back with a bit of water. And just let it fade away towards the edges. And we're starting to get a nice base there. The composition is working nice because the two dark areas at the bottom of the trees and the nice pot in the middle. Just slightly darker grey. And I can just add a bit of darkness to the edge of the footpath there, especially at the bottom where it sits on the ground, if you like. And then we can just use a bit of dry brush, wipe it over tissue that is, and fade it away. If you've got a rigger brush, a long pointy skinny one, and we could use this brush, and we could go in and we could use some of the dark green, because lots of trees are green, they're covered in the foliage and that sort of thing, and we can just start at this point to do some background trees. So go from the bottom and just flick upwards with it really. Because it's a woodland, obviously it wants quite a lot of this. It doesn't want too much. Wiggle your brush a little bit and just start to branch out with it, and then get it all working through. But you've not got to paint in necessarily definite trees. Just got a bit of water just to sort of soften those trees in a little bit. Add water to that colour, make it thinner, and continue to branch out, as we say. Keep adding the trees. Even a flick like this will work nice because it will give you the effect of the mass of trees, the random effect that we're trying to go for. And I'm just going to add a bit more detail to this side. These are very, very pale, these now, folks, okay? So we don't need too much on those. Just wants a little bit of detail. Just continue to grow. Painting them from thick to thin in the direction you would expect them to go. Pop that brush away for the second, come back to the size 6. Just get some dark grey, natural grey, but I want to mix it with a little bit of burnt sienna. Pop a little bit of burnt sienna with it, so it's like a browny colour really. It's fairly strong in colour, and I want to do the edge of the water. Just very quickly, I'm going to put a line across where the edge needs to be, following the shape of it. Then just use water, bang it on the side, shake the excess off, and then just use this water that's on your brush and just going to make this all fade downwards. And you can use quite a lot of water, and then that'll give me a nice separation between the water and the foreground area. And that's probably a good stage to leave that. Well, that's it for part one of today's painting, folks. I'll be showing you how to add the finishing touches later in today's programme. Now it's time to clean our brushes and take a short break. But join us in part two when Terry Chipp shares one of his studio secrets to demonstrate how to save a dented canvas. And Mike Skidmore takes centre stage to showcase his amazing artistic talent. I'll see you after the break.